Okay, so welcome back to Doghouse. My second guest is Mr. Dabkowski, who is a teacher here at Alton High School. Could you explain what you do here before we get
Yeah,
started?
sure. I'd be happy to. I teach English, currently teaching seniors. I also teach multimedia production, which James is in, which is a student-run news organization. And I teach freshman seminar,
Nice.
which, yeah.
You are also the co-director of the school play, so he has a lot going on. So I'd just like to thank him for even agreeing to do this with me.
I'm very excited too. As you know, like podcasting is like a big thing for me. I'm trying
Yeah.
to build out our capacity to do podcasts, and get my students to like explore their creativity within podcasting. I think it's a nice frame. And I'm super excited to see you build out Doghouse. And like,
Yeah, thank you.
I think it's awesome. I really do.
Well, what we're going to be talking about today is, if you don't know, the day that we're recording this, November 2nd, is Election Day. And if you've listened to episode 1, I spent a lot of time talking about the Buffalo mayoral race and the multiple candidates there. And by the time this episode comes out, the choice may have already been made. By the time you listen to this episode, we already might know who won.
That's true. I mean, although it's possible that this, like the presidential election and other elections in recent history, might drag out for many weeks or, God forbid, months.
I mean, I've thought about that, but I think it's definitely gonna take a couple days. Like, we're not gonna find out later tonight or anything like we used to be able to. But I don't think it's gonna take as long as the presidential, just because there's less people voting.
That's true. I mean, although it's quite a monumental task, especially if it's close at all.
Yeah.
To discern what a write-in is versus what a bubble, read on a Scantron is. So I wouldn't hold my breath for results like anytime soon.
Yeah.
But it'll be a nice surprise to get them on Wednesday morning.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, yeah, that's another thing. I honestly, I mean, I know who I would prefer to win. I'm not sure if I can say that here, but it's just, I don't know who's going to win at all. I could not, just because usually I would think, oh, there's only one person on the ballot, they're going to win. But in this election, with all the stuff that Byron Brown is doing, with all the support he has from people he usually wouldn't have the support of.
Yes, it's very interesting. We're learning about power alliances in Western New York in a way that many of us have known for a long time, but they're being put out in public in a way that's very jarring for some people to see. Like an alignment between Carl Palladino and Byron Brown was not like something that we would ordinarily expect. But in this case, they see such a threat from the left that they have decided to kind of band together and avoid what they see as like a worst case scenario for Buffalo.
Yeah, it's just, I remember when I remember when I was younger, Byron Brown, he was always talked about by Republicans and stuff badly, because he was obviously a Democrat. But now, because India Walton, as I talked about last episode, is a socialist, Byron Brown is now the candidate that is being supported by Republicans. And it's just very interesting to see, because for some reason, the Republicans didn't even run a candidate in this cycle, really.
I think the reason is just like the deep blue history of Buffalo and the perceived impossibility of success for a Republican candidate in the precincts of the city of Buffalo. But politics have been exploded over the last few years in many ways, and the old rules no longer apply.
Like, again, I just don't know who's going to win. It's really hard to think about for me, because like, usually you would just think, obviously, that if there's one person on the ballot, they're going to win. But it's, from what I've seen, this is something I knew I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Some of the candidates are doing interesting things at polling places and voting booths. Would you like to talk about that? Because you told me you had some experience with that.
Yeah, there was a candidate, and like I'll just say, like, I'm not declaring any kind of political affiliation in my job, and as a teacher, I don't think it's appropriate to do so. I do have opinions about political tactics, and I think those are okay to share, like such as the idea of demonizing an ism, because that's something that both left and right do constantly. But I just want to make it very clear that I'm not like throwing my weight behind any particular political philosophy.
Yeah, and I'm not going to ask you to.
So that's for all of you listeners of Doghouse out there on Alden Unfiltered or wherever. So what I would say is like, yeah, I went to vote early because my schedule is slammed right now with everything that I'm doing. I just like the feeling of voting on election day. I don't know. I'm old fashioned that way, but it wasn't going to happen today because I was certainly not getting up like early enough to vote before I had to leave my house, which is like at 6. I would have had a half-hour window to vote.
Yeah, so makes sense you didn't want to do that.
Yeah. So I went to vote early, and I thought it was really interesting that there's always campaigners. 100 feet away is the law from polling places, and there was a tent for one of the campaigns and staffers standing in parking spots where people who are going to vote would need to park, and I found it very weirdly intimidating. And also just like antithetical to what they were trying to accomplish, which was like, if you want your candidate to win, you do need people to go vote for them. So it might be best not to impede access to polling places.
Yeah, I actually one of our viewers sent me a picture of this. It was a picture they found on Twitter, so I don't. And after I got this picture, I want to see if it's true. So I like went back, I looked up the person who posted it. It seems like it was real. It was a picture of a polling place with one of the with a van parked right outside the window, like against the curb, right outside the window. Just this van absolutely covered in like vote for whichever candidate it was. I'm not going to say.
Yeah.
It was, which obviously you are not supposed to do.
Yeah. If it's within 100 feet, it's.
And this was definitely within 100 feet, seeing as they were parked against the curb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas I don't know who enforces these things. The Board of Elections, maybe.
So I think they should be doing a bit more, but
yeah, agreed. But I mean, it's a fascinating week, and as somebody who lives in Buffalo, like, and who has followed Buffalo politics for many years and has interviewed the mayor many times, I think it's an amazing moment in Buffalo political history. I think people's jaws dropped over the summer when India Walton came away with the victory.
Yeah, I hadn't even heard about India Walton until I saw the news that she had won the primary. Yeah.
Well, I mean, she's been floating in the atmosphere in Buffalo for a while as a progressive figure, but none of us thought that she was going to be in the position that she's in now, because Buffalo is it's an old-fashioned town with old-fashioned politics. Doesn't necessarily take kindly to newcomers. I mean, we're talking about Jimmy Griffin and Tony Masiello, and there's an old boys club philosophy, absolutely, like many cities. And so I think people were really stunned when that happened, and people took note of a progressive movement forming that they had not thought was that as powerful as it turned out to be.
And I definitely think Indy Walton is the most interesting of the candidates. What I've seen, I'm not like saying like I'm gonna say which one I've heard, but like I've seen a bit of the debates they've had.
Mm-hmm.
I think you watched last episode. I think I maybe talked a little bit too much about Ben Carlisle, how much I don't like him. But but he's probably not going to win anyway, so it's fine. But it's just, I think Indy Walton is the most interesting candidate that's been in Buffalo for a while. Obviously, I've done a bit of research, seeing as I have a podcast where I talk about this.
I would hope that you have, James, and if you didn't, it would be reflected.
Obviously, I do a little bit of research.
Reflected in
Indy
your
Walton
grade.
is the most interesting mayoral candidate that's been in the city for a good while.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think there. More or less, Byron Brown has run uncontested for pretty much the majority of his tenure. I mean, the Republicans might float a candidate here or there, just like for fun, but they don't. Nobody thinks that a Republican is ever going to win the city of Buffalo, just given the history. Although, really, it's 2021 and weird things are happening, so you never know. But like, I also think the other thing that this election brings up is like, we think we know from polling, like how the election is going to turn out, and it's like, I'm pretty sure that polling is broken.
Yeah, polling. I think polling is I think for me, for polling, if it's like 95% one way, then you can kind of get like a general view.
Sure.
But polling it's always from such a small group of people
Right.
that it's really hard. So if polls are kind of split, like the polling has been, if the polls are like not like a huge margin, like the polls have been for this election, it's hard to see because it's not from everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's very hard to tell. And then there's obviously, we've kind of circled around the fact that only one of the candidates is on the ballot, so it's hard to tell if
what the effect of that will be.
It's going to be very interesting to see, because maybe there's a chance people would support one of the write-in candidates more, but when they actually get there, they could just not write them in, because write-in candidates historically don't do very well, especially in larger elections like this.
That's true. I mean, I think they're taking a lot of pages from Lisa Murkowski, who won a write-in campaign. But it's obviously a huge battle, and polling, as we saw in 2016, is fraught with potential errors that aren't necessarily reflected in the margin of error. So it's a very nerve-wracking and exciting moment today. I mean, we're going to see. It's really interesting to me to watch the media coverage of it too, because like literally nobody knows. Like if anybody's coming to you and be like, "Oh, election predictions," doop doop doop, like change the station.
Yeah, that's why me and you, we're not going to do an election prediction here. I'm not going to ask you who you think's going to win, because you don't know, and if you said you knew, you'd be lying. So
yeah, and isn't it silly that people do those ever? I mean, it's just a waste of time.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to have the equivalent of like the last election, the presidential, or the guy with the map doing the electoral college and everything.
Although, wouldn't that be funny if we cleared out the Wax newsroom and turned you into, I don't know, who's the guy with the khakis?
I could not tell you
on MSNBC that everybody was obsessed with. Yeah, we could give you like an Alden electoral district map and like for the next like supervisor race.
Maybe you should do that in 2024.
I think we should.
If you're doing Wax in 2024, get a kid to stay up all night.
Just one kid.
One kid.
Yeah, not
only him.
No one else. Him and a phone. I mean, I'll be at home.
Yeah. So, well, thank you for coming on here to talk to me about this.
It's my pleasure, and I'm a huge fan of DOGHAUS, and it's now 2 episodes.
It is now 2 episodes,
and I can't wait to see how it grows before the end of your senior year.
Yeah. And I have already been coming up with lots of ideas for people to have on. Yeah, trust me, there's going to be more interesting. Not saying you're not interesting, but there's going to be more. But it's not just going to be people from this school, is what I'm trying to say.
I'm deeply offended, James. And you broke my cardinal rule of Wax News, which is don't interview people in Wax News. But it's okay. You know, I'm here to help you.
Well, yeah, I didn't interview you just because you're my teacher. I interviewed you because I knew you would have interesting things to say, because you didn't mention this earlier, but you used to write for the Buffalo News. So I thought, I was thinking, here is definitely someone who will know what I'm talking about.
I 100% do. So thank you. Your grade just went up by 0.5 point.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Before we go, I just want to say again that DOGHAUS does have an Instagram that you can submit questions to. Someone actually submitted something that they thought was wrong, an audio issue, over the Instagram, which I was able to fix after that.
So it out.
It is at DOGHAUSPod, DOGHOUSPOD. So if you have anything you want to send, any questions.
James, isn't it HAUS?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
At DOGHAUS.
I don't even know how to spell the name of my own podcast.
It's okay.
That's great. That's fine. But okay, so thank you for coming on again.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Bye.